Clean that up, she snapped, like she was swatting a fly, except the fly was me, and the slap echoed through an entire glass atrium like a sermon. I was crouched over the floor buffer, coaxing a vein of gold out of the marble that hadn't been visible in 10 years. That stupid energy drink and hadn't even finished rolling when it hit my foot. She didn't look at me. None of them ever did. The one who tossed it was Brett, some Ivy League intern in Allbirds and arrogance, too busy gushing about pre-seed scalability to notice the man he just insulted used to sign his kind's offer letters. I didn't even blink, just slid the can into the side bin of the janitor cart like I had 1,000 others. Back when I wore tailored jackets and had my own corner office, hell, back when the atrium wasn't even here yet, I used to walk these floors with architects and bankers and nervous junior partners tripping over themselves to secure a meeting. Now, my name's been scrubbed off everything except the legal annex to a facility clause they didn't read. They call me maintenance specialist on the internal org chart. That's cute. I'm the one who signed the lease that lets this building exist. I'm the one who trademarked the name they put on every banner in this place. But you wouldn't know that watching me buff floors like I failed out of shop class. I chose this. Let them forget me. Let them confuse silence for surrender. If you're still here listening, first off, you've got patience, and second, could you hit that subscribe button and like the video? 97% of people watch these stories without subscribing, and it means a lot to the team putting this together. I promise this one goes places. The CEO's mother had just been named Advisor to Culture last week. That's what happens when your company grows too fast and your board gets sentimental or scared. You get someone like Linda crawling out of the past with a lanyard and a vendetta, calling herself Culture Advisor, like she was the Oracle of Delphi. She used to glare at me during board meetings back in the day, whispering to her son that I was too blue-collar to scale. I guess she finally got her revenge, 30 years late, one mop bucket at a time. But none of that mattered yet. Not to them, anyway. They saw what they wanted to see. A janitor in faded Dickies nodding quietly while they prepped for a $310 million investor tour. Every cable had to be hidden, every surface polished to museum shine. They wanted the place to look like it ran on divine order, not duct tape, caffeine, and the same human hands that built it from drywall to dominance. I was fine with the role, until she told me not to speak, not just that day, every day. You don't need to say anything, she said last Monday when I corrected the event coordinator about the loading dock timing. Let the professionals handle it. Funny thing is, she said it like I'd asked to drive the company. All I'd done was mention that you can't unload a 70-foot sponsor installation when the garage is still locked from HVAC access. But sure, let the professionals handle it. So I stopped talking and started listening, and while they smiled for press photos, I waited for marble to dry and clauses to ripen. The first time Linda barked an order, it wasn't even to me. It was to the receptionist, poor girl. "Too much lipstick," she said, without even pausing her gait. "We're not selling escort services." That was at 8:42 on a Tuesday, 2 days into her new role as Advisor to Culture. By noon, she'd torn down 2 framed photos, canceled Bagel Fridays, and sent a 3-paragraph email about tone policing office greetings. "We used to say hi around here." That was too unstructured now. I knew her type before she had a title. Back when I was CEO, Linda was the silent ghost in the back row of investor calls. Arms folded, eyes scanning for weakness like a wolf at the edge of a schoolyard. I always figured she didn't like me because I came up from trades, not Wharton. Didn't wear loafers. Knew the difference between copper pipe and pecs. She said once during an offhand cocktail comment to my then CFO, "Men like him don't scale." She was right in a way. I didn't scale. I built. She never understood the difference. After the VC buyout, they kept me on the books as facilities lead because the property deed still had my name buried in the sublease clause. Not something you can easily scrub unless you want to lose your zoning grandfather rights. So they kept me around. Nice paycheck. Quiet title. Don't make waves. And for a while, I didn't. I showed up early. I fixed what broke. I knew what every bolt and beam in this place cost. I even stayed out of the way when Brett, yeah, same energy drink jackass, started calling me old-timer like I was a borrowed relic from a museum nobody asked for. But when Linda walked in with her clipboard and her thin smile, everything changed. She had that slow, poison style of control, never raises her voice, just strips you one cell layer at a time. One morning, she moved my storage closet to a lower floor, said, "The smell of bleach clashes with the atrium orchids." The next day, she revoked my elevator badge access. Too much traffic during executive hours. I asked HR, politely. The reply, "You're technically non-executive ops. We're streamlining visibility during investor walkthroughs." Visibility. That's what I was now. A problem of visibility. Then came the whisper from a former teammate, Angela, from accounting. "They said you're a legacy holdover. Don't engage unless it's about floor wax." That's the memo going around. Floor wax. 31 years, 5 patents, 4 acquisitions, 1 global expansion. And now I was floor wax. I wanted to scream. Or maybe laugh. But neither would help. They'd built this tower on the idea that I was gone, irrelevant, boxed in, and I'd let them think that. Hell, I'd help them think that. I blended in so well they forgot what I'd written into the foundation. Let Linda strut through the office like a queen inspecting livestock. Let them toss my name around like dead weight. I didn't need to say a word. Because while she rearranged chairs and insulted people into silence, I was reading the rider she hadn't seen, the one buried in the last page of my retention contract, the one triggered not by termination, but by public disrespect. And I'd started counting. 3 separate documented instances of reputational harm. Just one more. She stopped in the middle of the hallway like a bloodhound catching scent. The air had that just waxed citrus tang, and I'd just finished polishing the conference glass with vinegar and patience. I was pushing the cart back toward the service closet when Linda zeroed in on me like I'd personally offended the gods of corporate feng shui. "You missed a smudge," she sniffed, pointing to a shadow on the baseboard that wasn't a smudge. It was a shadow. The sun shifts. Buildings move. Apparently, I do not. I kept my mouth shut and gave a nod. It wasn't worth it. Not yet. Then came the real dagger. "Stand up straight, you hunch like a dock worker." She turned to her assistant, a trembling grad student in a dress shirt 2 sizes too big. "Posture reflects morale," she declared, loud enough to echo off the glass. I straightened. Not because she said it, because old habits die hard, and the moment I felt a crowd gathering behind her, instinct kicked in. I used to command rooms like this, board meetings, investor pitches, strategy war rooms with $300 on the table. Now I stood like a bad exhibit at a manners museum. She tilted her head. "Don't speak unless asked," she said, as I opened my mouth to tell her the smudge was actually a lighting artifact from the custom UV coating I ordered myself 7 years ago. "You're not paid to speak," she said slowly, lips tightening. "You're paid to scrub." And just like that, the whole hallway dropped into silence. The intern looked away. 2 associates stood frozen by the kitchenette. One of them started to say something. Madison, I think, from Strategic Ops. Sweet girl, probably knew something was off. Linda raised a hand like a traffic cop. "We're managing a $310 million walkthrough this week," she said. "Let's not get sentimental over the janitor." There it was. The turn. The mask off. Sentimental. Janitor. Every word dipped in chlorine and served ice cold. I didn't speak. I didn't flinch. I just watched her walk away, heels clicking like a metronome of contempt. Then I made one quiet turn down the side hallway, back to the custodial room that doubled as my office. It still had my original fireproof cabinet, tucked under 2 utility jackets and a broken Swiffer pole. The key slid into the lock like it remembered me. I pulled out the tan folder marked simply Annex D, Clause 12C, subparagraph V, bolded, bolder than I remembered. Reversion of rights, privileges, and interests shall be triggered upon 1. Sustained reputational harm, or 2. Public personal denigration in the presence of board-authorized personnel or designated agents of the company, including but not limited to shareholders, executives, auditors, or investors. I read it twice. Then again. My fingertips traced the edge of the page like a blind man reading prophecy. 3 strikes. That hallway made 4. Assistant present, 2 associates, investor liaison, all in earshot, all authorized or designated by structure. And best of all, I hadn't said a single word. Not one. I shut the drawer, locked it, and went back to cleaning. But my posture? It was perfect. The day I sold my controlling stake, the conference room smelled like burnt espresso and panic cologne. The new leadership team was still hungover from their Series C bender, wide-eyed with ambition and clueless about what ran under the hood. They thought they were buying a machine. What they got was a cathedral, one they didn't know how to pray in. They wanted full control. Fine. I gave it to them, at least on paper. But in the subtext, in the shadowed footnotes of a 57-page transition doc, I retained 3 reversion rights. Not fancy, not loud. Just quiet little trapdoors tied to real-world triggers. Ownership of the physical premises, use of original branding, and access to 3 core trademarks. Not the kind of stuff hotshot founders care about when they're chasing pre-IPO billboards. They skimmed. I watched. And my pen didn't tremble once. None of the reversion rights ever came close to being triggered. For years, the new team treated me like a mascot with a mop, and I let them. The rights stayed locked in a drawer behind a bottle of Windex and a backup pair of steel-toed boots. Nobody asked. Nobody wondered. Even my old CTO, now a fractional consultant in Miami, didn't know I still had hooks in the building deed. But Linda? Linda didn't wonder. She dictated. After that hallway incident, after she called me a janitor like it was a slur carved into granite, I didn't rage, I didn't cry, I didn't even twitch. I waited until the atrium cleared, until the interns shuffled back to their Slack threads and the over-caffeinated Bretts returned to planning their investor decks. Then I stepped into the maintenance room, shut the door, and took out the burner. Not a shady burner phone. A pristine, never-activated line I kept wrapped in foil inside a box of expired contractor gloves. It had 1 contact saved. No name, just a number. Direct to Elias Mercer, my attorney of 18 years. I pressed call. He answered with a grunt. This line's either a birthday or a bomb. Clause 12, I said quietly. Sub V. He paused. I could hear the clack of his keyboard already. You're serious? She said, you're not paid to speak, just scrub. In front of the investor staff, 2 executives, and her assistant. Silence on the line. Then, Jesus. I didn't respond. I stood still. Witnesses confirmed. Audio might exist. I'll verify. I'll run point, he said. Courier? I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Get him ready. Standby notice only. No turning back once he walks in. I know. A pause. Are you ready? I took a long breath. My hand rested on the same mop I'd used that morning, the same one I'd bought myself when the team told me to source my own tools after the rebrand. Yes, I said. I've been ready since the day they handed Linda a badge. He laughed, short, dry. You always did play the long game. Chess only works if the other side forgets you're holding a queen. He hung up. I stood there a while longer, hand on the door frame, listening to the hum of the building's vent system. I'd designed it myself to run 20% quieter than standard models. You'd never notice unless you built it, or unless you lost it. Out in the hallway, Linda's voice rang again, telling someone to remove a rug she didn't vibe with. I placed the phone back in the glove box, locked it, checked the schedule. Courier could be on site in under 90 minutes. Next move wasn't mine. I'd already made it. The scuff wasn't even real. It was a faint smudge from a cartwheel that had already been buffed over twice. But to Linda, it was an offense worthy of theater. I was finishing a second pass along the glass corridor outside the executive conference room. The place looked like it had been steam-cleaned by angels, polished marble, chrome rails gleaming, not a single fingerprint on the doors. The investor group was due in 26 minutes. I knew because I built the damn schedule myself, even though my name no longer appeared on any event chain. The double glass doors opened sharp at 3:14 p.m. Linda stepped out, all pearls and passive aggression, holding her tablet like a medieval scroll. She took 3 steps, scanned the floor like she was inspecting a crime scene, then planted her heels with such melodramatic force I thought the tile might crack. "What is that?" she shrieked, pointing to the faint mark near the bottom corner of the panel. I followed her gaze. Nothing. Maybe a wisp of residue from the hallway cleaner, visible only if you tilted your head and believed in ghosts. She didn't wait. "Clean that up, you donkey." The words exploded off the glass. They hit hard, harder than she knew, harder than she cared. The term echoed, sharp as bone snapping. Conversations died mid-sentence. Across the hallway, I saw 5 people freeze. 2 junior execs, 1 PR coordinator, a guy from facilities I didn't recognize, and Emma. Emma, the CFO's assistant, held up her phone, not aimed at me, just recording a video update for her logistics team. Her face drained white. The phone kept rolling. Linda didn't seem to notice. She turned, lips curling like she'd stepped in something, and vanished back through the doors. I stood still, didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe for a moment. And then slowly, like a man staring into the eye of a storm, I looked up and locked eyes with Emma. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Her hand lowered slightly, still clutching the phone, now frozen on the lock screen. Her eyes searched mine for something. Panic, anger, shame. She found none. I gave a single nod. Not to her. Not to the phone, to the universe. My mop was still damp. I laid it down and swiped once over the phantom scuff. Not because it needed it, but because I still took pride in precision. Then I walked away. Not fast. Not slow. Just steady. Every step from that hallway to the janitor's closet echoed like a funeral bell for the mask I'd worn too long. She'd crossed the line. The clause wasn't theoretical anymore. It was activated, documented, witnessed, captured, and now it was real. By 3:17, I was back in the maintenance room, door locked, burner phone in hand. I sent one message. Proceed. Courier green. I stood there, back to the door, mop resting in the sink, heart beating like a metronome. Not from rage, from precision. One scream, one word, one moment carved in granite. It was done. At 4:45 p.m. sharp, the front doors hissed open with the kind of hush you only notice when the entire building is holding its breath. The courier stepped in like he belonged, trim navy suit, matte leather briefcase, no clipboard, no badge. He didn't glance at the welcome desk, didn't check in, didn't pause. He moved with that slow, certain rhythm that made people step aside before they even knew why. I watched him from the west stairwell, halfway behind a row of service lockers, mop in one hand, phone in the other. He wasn't delivering sandwiches. He wasn't here for a signature. He was here for finality. He passed Brett in the hallway, Mr. Energy Drink, and the kid barely looked up, too busy flirting with someone from DevOps. That was the difference between them and me. They moved fast, loud, reactive. I moved slow, quiet, exact. The courier stopped outside the executive suite, 3 soft knocks. The receptionist opened the door, already mid-apology, thinking he was early for the investor deck run-through. "I'm here for general counsel," the courier said. 5 words, calm, crisp, delivered like a verdict. Inside, I could see the prep team buzzing, charts on screens, bottled water lined up like a product pitch altar. The CEO stood near the center, doing his best imitation of a visionary. Linda was perched on a stool in the corner, legs crossed, sipping tea like she'd already sold the company. A runner fetched Mr. Hollis, general counsel, out of the back corner. He looked annoyed, confused. He took the envelope with a flick of impatience, clearly expecting a trademark inquiry or maybe another complaint from the union-busting consultant they'd hired last month. But the moment his eyes scanned the header, black ink, top-aligned Elias Mercer LLP, his face changed. He read the first paragraph, then the second, and then his lips parted like the oxygen had gone stale. His hand lowered, briefly resting on the edge of the counter as though gravity had grown heavier. "Section 12C, he murmured. "It's real." His glasses slid down his nose. He didn't push them back up. He turned slowly toward the CEO, who was mid-sentence about brand uplift metrics and post-round valuation optics. The room dimmed under the weight of what wasn't being said. "Jonathan," Hollis said, voice barely above a whisper, "we need to talk. Now." That's when things cracked. Investors, still seated from the rehearsal, looked up in mild confusion. Linda straightened her spine as if a spider had just crawled down it. The head of product glanced around like he'd missed a cue. Hollis handed the letter over, and when the CEO read the headline clause, his jaw didn't drop. It just stopped moving. He froze mid-breath, like a man watching a landslide edge closer, too stunned to run. "Reversion," he said. That one word dropped like iron. "What reversion?" Linda barked, now fully upright, both hands on the table. What is this? Hollis didn't answer her. He looked at the courier. Have copies been sent elsewhere? The courier just gave a single nod. Per instruction, recipient has authorized distribution. Not the janitor, not the facilities lead. Recipient. The CEO's tablet slid off the table and hit the floor with a flat slap. No one picked it up. From my perch in the stairwell, I watched them circle around the letter like it might combust. Not shouting, not chaos. Just silence pressed so tight it could have snapped bones. The logo on the front of the building? Trademark freeze notice. The building lease, reversion in effect pending title update. The 3 legacy trademarks, all under clause control. All now unavailable for public use, promotion, or investor declaration. 1 scream, 1 document, 1 signature. No dramatics, no raised voices, just gravity, applied correctly. I left the stairwell before they noticed I was there. There was still 1 hallway that hadn't been buffed, and I always finish what I start. By 8 p.m., the building had gone from buzz to blackout. Not literal. The lights still worked, the HVAC still hummed, but that corporate buzz, that false heartbeat of momentum, gone, replaced by a silence too dense for comfort, the kind that fills your ears with your own pulse. Emails flew like hornets. I saw them on the screens as I passed the open workstations. Urgent, brand freeze, action required, IP halt. Facility title, pending emergency review. Even AT had a meltdown. Marketing was told to suspend all scheduled posts, disable all logo assets, and cancel the next day's email campaign. The system that once moved at the speed of startup delusion now moved like sludge. The old name, our name, was locked. Trademark account frozen pending legal clarification. That's what happens when the clause you ignored turns out to be the backbone of your brand. But the real punch? The building. That sleek 3-story monument to clean lines and venture money. The lease wasn't just in my name. It was contingent on me. Clause 12C, cross-referenced with the facilities rider. In the event of public denigration or reputational harm, the property and its rights shall revert to the founding signatory. They never thought I'd enforce it. They thought I'd go quietly into the mop bucket. So imagine their faces when legal called the city registrar and filed the reversal motion. No threats, no bluffs, just documents. Filed, accepted, logged. By 8:04, I was once again, legally and formally, the title holder of the building they all worked in. Not their board, not their investors. Me. They couldn't even enter certain areas without permission now. Storage rooms, archives, even the damn espresso machine in the executive lounge was installed under a side lease. Mine. And still, I didn't gloat. I walked the empty lobby like I had 1,000 nights before. Lights low, no music, just my boots on marble and the distant hum of data servers warming the air. I didn't expect applause. There was no crowd, no confetti, no victory playlist queued up. There was only the weight of everything they took for granted. I pushed the mop slowly across the floor, not because it needed it, but because my hands had learned this rhythm over years. Years of silence, years of pretending I didn't see the sneers, years of pretending I'd forgotten what I'd written into the foundation. And beneath the bitterness, beneath the burn, there was something else. Pride. The quiet kind. The kind you don't post about. The kind you feel in your knees when you see your reflection in a floor that still gleams because you gave a damn. They'd always thought I was staying because I had nowhere else to go. Truth was, I stayed because this place still had my fingerprints, my wiring, my blueprints, my claws. They erased my name from the org chart. Too bad they didn't check the deed. By morning, they were calling it a transitional restructuring. That's how the CEO framed it in the internal memo, like the foundation of the company hadn't just been ripped out from under them by a mop and a clause. We are entering a new chapter, he wrote, focused on agility, innovation, and long-term brand evolution. He forgot to mention that the name of the brand was no longer legally theirs to evolve. It took less than 48 hours for the leak to hit the industry blogs. Not just the clause, not just the reversion, but why. Founder regains ownership over insult, one headline read. VC darling loses HQ after janitor smeared, said another. Harsh, accurate. They tried damage control. PR drafted a ghostwritten statement about creative tensions and evolving partnerships. But people talk. Emma's video never made it public, but it didn't need to. Word spread through Slack, then LinkedIn, then dinner parties. The startup world is small, especially when a firm that raised $300 million loses its headquarters and trademarks because the CEO's mother couldn't keep her tongue behind her teeth. Linda was quietly transitioned out by the board the next afternoon. No email, no goodbyes. Her badge access revoked mid-meeting. I saw her in the parking garage, standing by her SUV, talking on the phone with that same clipped venom she used to order people around like furniture. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and just didn't recognize me without the mop. The board launched an inquiry into how such a clause was even possible. Legal was grilled, contracts reviewed, but the answer was simple. They never bothered to read what they signed. They thought silence meant surrender. They thought mops didn't carry leverage. They were wrong. I didn't answer the board's email. I didn't respond to the CEO's assistant calling to open a dialogue regarding a possible amicable settlement. They even dangled a 7-figure buyout trying to get the trademarks back. Offered to rename a wing of the new building after me. Legacy recognition, they called it. I sent back a single PDF, no cover letter, no commentary, just 4 words in bold, center-aligned Times New Roman, clause, signed, enforced. Good night. I never heard from them again. The company started the rebrand the following week. New name, new logos, new address. They moved to a smaller building 4 blocks down, cheaper rent, no marble, no soul. The big investor they were courting pulled out. Said they wanted to observe stability before finalizing the round. They blamed the market. I never spoke to the press. Didn't update my LinkedIn, didn't brag to old colleagues, or post a cryptic victory quote on Instagram like the new kids do. I just kept showing up, quietly, unbothered. You don't need to shout when your name is built into the structure. Correction isn't vengeance. It's just putting weight where it belongs. 3 weeks later, the new name went live. Some bland, focus-grouped placeholder that sounded like a failed biotech app. Gone were the sleek serif fonts, the embossed glass signage, the origin story they used to lead every investor pitch with. Now, it was lowercase letters, neutral colors, and an address that sounded like a strip mall. It fit them. They'd whittled down to half a floor in a shared workspace 2 neighborhoods over. The building I still owned sat quiet for a few days. Lights dimmed, like it was catching its breath after an evacuation. I kept walking the halls, not every day, just when it felt right. The janitorial team had been rerouted to a new vendor, but nobody told me to leave. Legally, they couldn't. The title was mine. The security system was mine. The floors, they still reflected me better than any mirror ever had. Late one Thursday, as the sun dipped through the atrium and lit the marble in gold, I found myself pushing the same mop I'd used the day Linda screamed across the corridor. It was muscle memory now, not obligation, just ritual, a final pass, a quiet nod to the past. That's when I heard the soft squeak of sneakers behind me. "Excuse me," a voice said. I turned. A kid, couldn't have been more than 21, stood in an oversized hoodie with a tablet clutched to his chest. New intern, clearly. I'd seen him hovering near the elevators a few times, always watching me like I was some ghost they hadn't explained in onboarding. "Do you still work here?" he asked, careful not to sound rude. I smiled. Just a little. "Sort of," I said. "I just like clean exits." He blinked, then smiled back like he understood, even if he didn't. I watched him disappear down the hall, and when the silence returned, it didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. That night, I took down the last piece, the logo plaque, the original one. Black slate, etched in chrome, mounted near the east entrance since day 1. My name was never on it, but my handwriting had sketched its layout on a napkin in '97. They'd walked past it for years without knowing who made it real. I wrapped it in canvas, loaded it into the back of my truck, and drove home. It hangs in my garage now, right above the workbench, next to the original mop sealed in plastic like a relic. I never needed a statue, or a plaque in the lobby, or some elevator pitch legacy they could butcher. All I wanted was the truth to stand. And it does. No press release, no applause, just clean marble. And the quiet weight of being the last one standing in the house you built. That's enough.